Everyone, good afternoon. It is Sunday, January 10th, I believe, or is it January 9th? I don't know, I'm still in that weird holiday phase, and I'm also half awake because the night before I ended up streaming again until 5 in the morning. So make sure you guys check out my Twitch channel. It is twitch.tv/mf underscore Shiba. So, anyways, into this video. A couple of days ago, I made a video about Resident Evil Outbreak, and I was saying, hey, Capcom should remake this, re-release it, do something with the series, and bring it back out, because now is the time we have the actual infrastructure to do online gaming. And so, as I was talking about that in that video, in the back of my head, I was kind of like reminiscing of like, hey, I need remember that one time you first got into Resident Evil? Remember that fear, remember that feeling. And if you guys know me, you guys know that I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, but I never really talk about how I got into the series. So this video is all about that. Just a heads up, Resident Evil is one of those games, one of those game series that I'm really passionate about. There's Resident Evil, Final Fantasy, Pokemon, Legend of Zelda, Metal Gear Solid, Devil May Cry. Those are like the video game series I'm really, really into. There's like my thing that I put on my video game resume, as you can see here, like my resume of video games and stuff. So yeah, Resident Evil has I have a soft spot for that in my heart. Now, I don't like the movies. I don't like the live action movies. Those are more of a guilty pleasure. You just want to put on and watch it. But the games are like what keeps me going in the series. So I still remember my first experience with survival horror in general. It was the Friday the 13th game on the NES. I played it at my cousin's house, and it was one of those games that we would put on and start playing, but we didn't really know what to do or how to react whenever Jason would show up. Because in that game, Jason basically stalks you throughout the whole game. And anytime you grab a key item and do something, Jason will show up and it turns into a boss fight. And the thing is, if Jason kills you, he'll kill the counselor and you're down one counselor, and you still need to keep playing and gather all the items to stop Jason or just to survive. It was one of those weird video games as a kid playing, because I was so used to like, oh, you just get to the end. Like I played Mario, I played Castlevania, and it's like, oh, just get to the end and that's it. You beat the game. This one was different. This one was like, oh, you have to explore and look for key items and then progress to the point where you actually defeat Jason and then you win. So that was my first taste of survival horror, and also in terms of like the stalker genre of horror. And that kind of like stuck with me as a kid, because that actually scared me, because I was always afraid of being like chased and stalked by a monster as a kid. So as luck would have it, my very first Resident Evil game was probably considered one of the hardest Resident Evil games at the time, and is also a Resident Evil game known for having a stalker mechanic, and that is none other than Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Oh crap. I remember when me and my sister went to our local Blockbuster, and we had this choice. Like, to pick two games. One for myself and one for my sister. We had an N64 and we had a PS1 at the time, and I had the N64 choice and my sister had the PS1 choice. And I still remember, like, I think I got Bomberman 64, or I got something really, really kiddie, because I was a 10-year-old, so I wanted something that wouldn't scare the hell out of me. And I think it was Bomberman, or was it Banjo? Because it was one of those games that are like, it was just like really like, it had a mascot in it, and you just get it, play it, and you kind of like just turn off your mind, and you're not really worried about anything while playing. Like, you're not worried about any of the monsters or anything inside the game and stuff. And then my sister, she was really into like the horror genre, horror movies and all that, and I told her, hey, there's this horror video game called Resident Evil out. There's a new entry, Resident Evil 3, because we were seeing all the commercials all the time on TV. And I told her about it, and she was like, oh, okay. And then she picked that out for herself, and I remember, it was that same night. We came back home, and I was like, okay, play Resident Evil 3. I want to watch you play it. I told my sister, and she put it in. She took out the disc, she put the disc into the PS1, and basically she played for about an hour or so, and I was just sitting there behind her. I was just like this, just watching her play. behind her back, and she was exploring the city streets. I didn't know what Raccoon City was at the time. I was just like, oh, you're exploring the city. Oh, okay. And I didn't realize, oh, you have limited ammo and all this stuff. And she was like walking around shooting all these zombies, and she made her way to the police department. And if you guys know how Resident Evil 3 goes, anytime you get to the police department, Nemesis shows up for your first encounter. Like, he actually just shows up and kills somebody, and he starts attacking you throughout the whole game after that point. And my sister, my sister at first just tried to fight Nemesis, and she ended up dying the first time. So she restarted the game, and I told her, "Hey, don't fight him, just run." And so she didn't fight him the second time, and then she ran to the inside the police station, and then she started exploring the police station. And we thought, oh, okay, the boss fight's over, the boss isn't gonna follow you or anything like that. And we're like, okay, cool, cool. And she started exploring the police station around more, and she got a couple key items, and then she was coming back down the steps of the police station, and I swear to God, Nemesis comes popping out of the window, and I go screaming out of the room like an idiot. I go screaming out of the room, scared for my life. My sister's still playing, and then, like, eventually Nemesis kills her, and then she just turns off the game. She hates playing Resident Evil after that moment because she didn't know what she was doing. And me, I go screaming to my mom, and my mom from that point on was like, Mark, you're not playing any more M-rated games. You're not going to watch your sister play any more M-rated games. My sister kind of like swore off playing video games after that point. And it didn't really touch, like, we didn't play any survival horror games after that for a while. Until I was 12, 11, something like that. And I on my N64, I was kind of like, okay, I want to play a horror game, and I couldn't figure out what horror game to play, and I realized, oh crap. Well, I didn't say oh crap, that's the general. But I said, oh, Resident Evil 2's out on the N64. And I'm like, okay. And I ended up buying that, and I played through all of Resident Evil 2. I played through all of it as a 11-year-old, and I absolutely loved it because the controls were actually a little more easier. It wasn't tank control. It was actually more like you hold a direction, you move in that direction. It's not the classic where, like, oh, you hold left and right and you'll turn like a tank and then move. This was like the N64 controls were different. You could change it to, you just press up and you'll move in that direction you're going in, or press left, right, and you go in that direction your character's facing in. So it was like, all right, cool. So I played through all Resident Evil 2, and then I was like, you know what? I wanted to play Resident Evil 3. Like, somehow I challenged myself as like a 11, 12-year-old, and this was like in 2001-ish kind of thing. I'm like, you know what? I want to play more Resident Evil. I want more Resident Evil. At the time, it was kind of hard to find Resident Evil 1 because it came out in 1996. 97 was the director's cut came out, and it was kind of hard to find that copy. So then, but it was really easy to find this copy because it was still in stock in most places. And so I went with my mom to this video game store called Matt's Game Exchange by where I live, and Matt's Game Exchange was actually a really fun store. They had like so many used video games. They had all these like modifications they could do. The store's not open anymore. They closed like years ago. But like my parents knew the owner, and the owner was really cool with me, and he modified my PS1 to play Japanese games. So I was like, oh, thank you. And then like I saw they had this on the shelf, and I was hesitant. I was like, do I really want to get chased by Nemesis? Do I really want this game? Do I really want to like die so many times while playing this? And I actually said yes. I said yes to all of that. And I was like, okay, let's go buy this game. It was actually pretty cheap at the time because when I got this, Code Veronica was out, and Code Veronica was the new Resident Evil game on the Dreamcast, so the old games kind of got discounted. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy this new, and I bought it. And I didn't get the Nemesis mechanic for a while because I thought it was completely randomized. Like I thought like anything you do, Nemesis is constantly stalking you. He's gonna follow you. He's gonna find you, no matter what you do. And so every time I played it, I went in with hesitation. It was like a really big, deep hesitation to it, and like I was afraid that Nemesis is just going to kill me, one-shot me, like the way he did to my sister. All this like a few years ago, before that. And so then it was really, it was a learning experience. It was like the first really hard video game I ever played that I got good at. And so that, like, to me, Resident Evil 3 kind of like just stuck with me for a while because they taught me how to like adapt and overcome and persevere through like difficulties and all that stuff. And like the only way I actually beat it the first time, I had to use a guide. Like I had a magazine that had the complete guide for the game, and it showed you all your branching options, your choices and stuff, but it didn't spoil the game. It didn't spoil the story or anything like that, so it didn't really tell you what was happening with the characters, but it just told you, okay, go here, pick this up, I didn't go there. And as a 12-year-old, 11-year-old getting into survival horror, that was the easiest way for me to get into it and learn and adapt and figure out stuff. And then I realized as I was reading the guide, like, I was like, oh crap, this game is deeper than it is. Because you get a mixed ammo, and by mixing ammo, you create new ammo, and defeating nemesis at certain times in the game gives you special weapons and all that stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I kept at it. I wasn't really trying to go for those things because I was still afraid of dying, but at the same time, I was like, okay, yeah, like I see what's going on here. And then the game stuck with me and also made me have a reason to have Jill as like my favorite Resident Evil character. You can see Jill right there. As my favorite Resident Evil character, and Nemesis as like my favorite Resident Evil monster and stuff. And it's kind of like, while the game graphically hasn't held up really well, gameplay wise, it's really good. It's like one of the best classic Resident Evil games you could play. At the time of release, it wasn't as like people didn't really favor it as much as RE2, or they didn't remember it as much nostalgically as like Resident Evil 1. It was kind of like in this weird position because it had to come out for the PlayStation, even though the actual true RE3, which was Code Veronica, came out on the Dreamcast. It was kind of like they were contracted to make a third Resident Evil game on the PlayStation. And it was unique. It was unique for everything that I just mentioned, and also for the fact that it is technically a prequel to the second game, and also a sequel to the second game, which is pretty weird, right? If you guys play the game, you guys already know what I mean by that. But for everyone else, it's just like, I recommend go and play it, and you will figure it out. If you can't find this version of the game anymore, it's available on, you can buy it on PC on Steam, I believe, this version, and you can also get it on the PS3 digital store as well. Getting the hard copy like I have is really, really rare. So I recommend getting like Amazon or eBay or a mom and pop video game store if they have it. Pick it up. It's really good. But if you can't get that, don't worry, because last year they actually released Resident Evil 3 Remake for the PS4 and Xbox One and PC. And while it's not a faithful recreation of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, the remake of 3 holds up pretty well on its own too, because it has everything, like in a way, the way this game looks was how I imagined this in my head as a 11-year-old. Like, this game doesn't look that well anymore, graphically speaking, but like, whenever I was playing this, I imagined it looking like the remake did, like in my head, like that good. And so it's nice to actually have Remake 3 as it is, because you get to experience that for like the first time all over again, really. While the story is sort of the same, the environments are actually way different. You explore a different layout of the city. Nemesis is redesigned. Jill's redesigned. Carlos is redesigned, as you can see on the back of the box, on the front of the box. Like, the primary characters are all redesigned, and the layout is different, and so the surprises, the scares are also different too. And it was, the Remake 3, it was one of my top games of last year. This and Final Fantasy 7 were like the two big games for me last year. But yeah, it's like, it's weird as I talk about Resident Evil and seeing how far I've come a long way from RE3 Nemesis. It's like, if you guys know me, you guys see the way I play, like, you see my streams and everything, I have so much knowledge and everything, I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta do this and this with the monster, and it's amazing. Like, if I had a chance to sit down with my 11-year-old self who was playing this for the first time, I'd be like, oh no, kid, keep going, you got this, you keep going, just dodge his moves, and don't shoot all the zombies, save your ammo, and don't save too much, and save in multiple save slots. If I said all that to my 11-year-old self, would be a pro faster than I was. And yeah, so that is my journey. That is like the first Resident Evil game I ever played or experienced in a way. Experience in a way. And it's actually really funny because I bring this up with my sister on and off. I'm like, hey, remember that one time I played Resident Evil 3 and I went screaming out of the room? It's always a topic of conversation for us when it comes to video games. My sister hasn't really touched video games in a really long time since she does it occasionally on her phone, but like she's kind of like stopped playing console game because of this game. Me, I continue playing because of this game. And yeah, so hopefully one day my own nephew, I'll be like, hey kid, time to play some Resident Evil. But until then, who knows? Hopefully he keeps playing video games like the way I did. But anyways, guys, that was my short video on Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. I'll probably have more videos along the way. And make sure you guys tune in and check out my stream. Because once again, it is twitch.tv/mf_Shiva. Alright, guys, I'll see you later.